Edmonton area MP Matt Jeneroux told us in November to leave his family alone and that he was going to be spending more time with them and ultimately retiring from politics. Well, according to a headline in the Toronto Sun from Brian Lilley, apparently Matt Jeneroux has spent enough time with his family and is now a Liberal. Hello, everyone. I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Lorrie Goldstein and Brian Lilley. Okay, it's your headline. I think it's poking fun at what was supposed to be a serious moment for Matt Jeneroux, who told us all to leave him alone. Brian, he's spending time with his family. He's moving out to BC with his wife, and he wants to now move forward as a Liberal.
Yeah, this is utterly bizarre. So ever since Chris D'Entremont surprised everyone, including himself, by leaking the news that he was crossing the floor to the Liberals, rumors were circulating that Matt Jeneroux was next. And so, of course, back then, you remember Matt Jeneroux put out that weird statement. Nobody had dragged his family into anything, at least not publicly. And he puts out this weird statement, no context, leave my family alone. We need privacy. I'm going to be resigning, by the way, and I'm going to go spend more time with my family. Now, his wife is a surgeon who had been working in Edmonton. She took a job in Montreal, I'm told. They were trying to be closer to him being in Ottawa all the time. That didn't work. She ends up working at a hospital in Victoria. So he decamps to Victoria. Nobody hears from him from November until now. And then he pops up and is suddenly a Liberal. And he says, well, it was Mark Carney's Davos speech, and I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore. Uh, you've been on the sidelines for months. What gives? This riding, Edmonton Riverbend, it's only been around since 2015, but I looked back through the different historical parts of it, and, it's been made up of different ridings. Some parts, they've never, ever elected a Liberal. In one area of Edmonton that is part of this riding now, they elected a Liberal named Hugh Harry in 1968, and he lasted exactly one term. Other than that, it's been Conservative, it's been Reform, it's been Canadian Alliance, and Conservative again. Uh, I'm not sure that his voters are going to take kindly to this. And then when you look at his travel, by the way, very little travel to Edmonton over the last while. He's been going to Vancouver, Victoria, Montreal on his MP travel. So he's never in Edmonton, but now he's going to be not only the Liberal MP for Edmonton Riverbend, he's going to be Mark Carney's special advisor on international trade and defense and security initiatives.
Which sounds completely made up and utterly BS, Lorrie. But this is someone that was elected as a PC MLA twice, four times as a Conservative MP for that area. And I think that there's a lot of cynicism, particularly with these three defections in almost as many months. Um, but we can't ignore the impact on this, for example, on Pierre Poilievre. I no doubt, short term, this stings without question. Considering Jeneroux's long-standing time within the Conservative Party, both provincially and federally, but is your read of this that okay, this is it now? I mean, it's hard to say. I understand it's hard to predict these things, but your take on the impact for Poilievre, long term, short term.
It's not good at all. Um, in part because they kept saying after each defection that they thought that was the last one. Um, Jeneroux to me is, I mean, I tweeted last night that I wouldn't give him a position of responsibility in any party. Floor crossing is one thing, but the soap opera that went on with this guy, as Brian has and like you haven't represented your constituents for months, and now you pop up to say that, well, we know you guys voted one way, but I'm going to cross the floor, whatever. But for Poilievre, it's not good. One more, and Poilievre, sorry, one more, and Carney has a majority. It doesn't matter really, Poilievre, yes, it's betrayal and all that, but you've lost three when you told us that you'd shorted up after one. There's a story in the Hill Times today which quotes anonymously a former Conservative MP who says he and his colleagues, the line going around Parliament Hill is that Pierre Poilievre has become the Justin Trudeau of the Conservative Party.
Hmm.
That's devastating, that kind of stuff. Whether Poilievre can recover, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. The thing is that he has the support of the base. I mean, we saw that in the convention in Alberta, 84.7%. But I think there's a question now of can he energize beyond the base to get enough votes to defeat Carney? And Carney, politically, the one thing that saves him is that Carney's in the driver's seat. He doesn't need to call an election to get a majority. He can do it because of some of the, there's been a loss of a seat here, and a couple people are going to be foreign assignments, but they're in Toronto ridings that are solid, like Blair and Freeland, so that's not a problem. And there's also talk about some other ridings where the Liberals would have a chance. But effectively right now, he's got a practical majority because the other parties aren't going to defeat this government right now, particularly the NDP, who still don't have a leader. So look, these are bad times, I think, it's not good for Poilievre. When he gets this kind of advice that, well, he has to change his tone and he has blah, blah, blah. No, his policies were fine. We know they're fine because Carney stole them all. We have a government now that's investing in defense, that killed the carbon tax, that says it's put a limit on immigration, that has a housing policy. Those are all things that came straight from Pierre Poilievre's playbook. I would think that one of the arguments to make is, well, do you want the party that actually believes in this stuff and therefore may do it? Or do you want a party that adopted it to win? But at the moment, look, the wind's in Carney's sail. We'll have to see what Poilievre can do, but I don't think it's helpful to tell him that he has to change. People can spot insincerity very quickly. And to me, Poilievre's policies are good and he should stick with them.
And Brian, I think that's an important point and takeaway from a lot of this is that a lot of the policies that Poilievre has put forward, not only during the course of the election, but even prior to that, Canadians were embracing it. Canadians were saying, yes, this is what we are looking for. And then enter the Trump factor. So Poilievre is facing outside forces that he has, frankly, no control over. Everybody's giving him advice, change your hair, change your tone, change your message, change your caucus, change your this, change everything. I don't think that that's valuable because there are sound policies and values that he was pushing that was being embraced, quite frankly. Then the US factor comes in. He can't control these things. And all he can, and then he gets, well, you're not hard enough on the US. You're too hard on the US. I mean, there's no winning here for Poilievre, and I say all that because I'm wondering if conservative MPs are looking at this and thinking to themselves, there is no way we are ever going to attain power again in this country, and the only way for me to be part of a government again is if I join the Liberals.
Well, some of them might be saying that, but look, the media narrative is very different than reality.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to remember that we have a press gallery in Ottawa that is more interested in holding Jamil Jivani and Pierre Poilievre and the opposition to account than they are interested in holding the government to account. You would think that Mark Carney was winning by a country mile and has been since the last election, where in fact for most of the last year, the Conservatives have been nipping at the Liberals' heels. And every time that issues such as affordability or crime or immigration crop up, the Conservatives do well. When Donald Trump becomes the main issue, then suddenly the Liberals are way out in front. And right now, Trump has become a main issue again. Between the nonstop coverage on CBC, you would think that CBC was a Minnesota public broadcaster, the way they covered the ICE protests in Minnesota. There were serious stories happening in Canada that they just ignored for that. You hear about how they're running away in the polls. They're not, but now with Trump back up, they are there. There's just a poll out from Politico showing how unhinged. Oh, sorry, don't mean to attack Canada. I shouldn't say we're in a hissy fit, but a poll by Politico of residents of Canada, the UK, France, and Germany asked which country is the biggest threat to global peace and security. China, Russia, or the United States? Canada by far says the United States is the biggest threat to global peace. All the others say Russia. Do you know why? Because Russia is engaged in a shooting war, a war of aggression against the neighbor. Donald Trump and the United States are not doing that, but we are so detached from reality in this country. We are so obsessed. One of the things I like about vacationing in the United States over the last little while, which as a good Canadian I'm not supposed to do, is I hear less about Donald Trump in the US than I do on a daily basis in Canada. So that's kind of the problem that Pierre is facing. Now, I've mused about, can he survive this? And it's not that I think he has to go or that he's doing a horrible job, although the party should be doing reflection. It's that with Jeneroux crossing, you might have ambitious conservatives saying, aha, I can do better than the boss. Now's my chance to organize. And so you got to be watching for that. The poly markets, by the way, they went from saying Carney wouldn't get a majority by June 30th to now about 45% yesterday when I looked. The poly markets also went from Pierre Poilievre being out by June 30th, being at 15% to just shy of 30%. So people are starting to bet, and you might see some ambitious Tory step forward and say, let me take over and do what the boss can't do, much the way that Poilievre did to Aaron O'Toole.
Well, I guess, Lorrie, these are interesting times in the conservative political circles, but troubling, certainly turbulent times. We just came off the heels just over a week ago, acknowledging and commemorating Prime Minister Stephen Harper's victory and the success that he as a government had. He spoke obviously very glowingly about Pierre Poilievre and stood behind him and supported him. Harper's opinion is still very means a lot in the party, but it doesn't seem to be resonating through the conservative caucus. And I think part of the challenge Poilievre has is such a huge opposition party. It's unwieldy. And conservatives generally don't go with groupthink like the left does. They have independent thought. And so they're thinking, okay, well, this might be my opportunity. This might be my chance. Only furthering the inability for the conservatives to have, I think, national electoral success with their own. If a civil war brews, reminds me of back in the days, guys, when it happened between the Martinites and the Chrétienites, when this was going on, putting the Liberal Party in the wilderness for a long time.
Yeah,
Lorrie.
look, there's always, as we all know, that there's always been a split between the red Tories and the blue Tories, and right now a lot of the designated spokesmen for the conservatives, at least on the CBC, are red Tories, and so you don't see a vigorous defense of Pierre Paul, with rare exceptions. Kate Harrison, I think, is great.
Yeah.
But the others are always seem to be on the defensive. There's the whole well, no, stand up for your party. It really comes down to me. Look, what do you believe in? These floor crossers, to me, are just like, oh, so you didn't know what the conservatives stood for when you ran for them. You didn't know what they stood for when you got their support and when you were elected, not because you're a great person, because the vast majority of Canadians vote for the party. So okay, so that wasn't good enough. And to have these sudden epiphanies, whether it's like, oh, I guess I've been with my family enough, or it was Carney's speech. Give me a break. What I would say to the caucus is stand by your leader, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
Be vigorous. There are counter arguments to make. Brian just made some of them. Stephen Harper, his great success was uniting the two broken wings of the party. Remember, Chrétien got 3 majorities in a row, and it only stopped when Harper made the deal with Peter MacKay to join the two broken wings of the party and become one conservative party. Unity is how you win elections. Disunity is how you lose them. And so to me, amidst all the criticism about Pierre Poilievre and do this and that, I would say the Tory caucus, get your act together, get your act in gear, defend your leader and defend your policies unashamedly.
Well, one more floor crossing, and Mark Carney will have that coveted majority. But is that how Canadians want to have a majority government? Well, time will tell. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And go to thetorontosun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.